Hi again. In F.F. Bruce, The Real Jesus, we have reached the chapter Jesus and the Jewish Parties of his day. Now, the Essenes. Could Jesus then have been an Essene, or at least have had some association with the Essenes? The idea is one that has appealed to a number of students. It received widespread currency when the Irish writer George Moore worked it into the plot of his novel The Brook, Kerith, first published in 1916. It must be said, however, that the idea is a suitable one for imaginative fiction, but has no place in historical fact. But who were the Essenes? They were an order of pious Jews who lived in the simple life in ascetic communities in the wilderness of Judea, and possibly in other areas within and on the borders of the Holy Land. They first appear in history around 150 BC. Those who were admitted to the order had to undergo a rigorous period of 3 years probation. None of them retained any private property after final initiation. Whatever they possessed passed at that time into the ownership of the community and was administered by its treasurer. They maintained themselves by undertaking various forms of manual labor. They devoted much time to the study of the sacred scriptures and interpreted the ancestral laws, especially the food laws and the laws of purity, with exceptional strictness. Until 1947, our knowledge of the Essenes was derived almost entirely from ancient writers, whether pagans like the Roman author Pliny the Elder, Jews like Philo of Alexandria and Josephus, or Christians like Hippolytus of Rome. But when, in 1947, the caves of the Qumran region, northwest of the Dead Sea, began to yield their manuscript treasures, the so-called Dead Sea Scrolls, it soon became clear that these documents had once belonged to the library of a religious community. It was natural to refer to this community as the Qumran community, and as more became known from the study of the documents about the life and beliefs of the community, many scholars concluded that it was a community of the Essene order. Indeed, when Pliny the Elder, describing the Essenes as they existed before AD 70, says that they lived west of the Dead Sea, above En-Gedi, archaeologists who know the area assure us that there is only one site to which Pliny could have referred, that site being the headquarters of the Qumran community, thoroughly excavated from 1953 to 1956. If the Qumran community was indeed an Essene community, as is most probable, then the discoveries of 1947 and the following years have provided us with literature from inside the Essene order. The Qumran community was rigidly separatist. Its members believed that by divine right, the office of high priest in Israel belonged exclusively to the house of Zadok. But there had been no high priest of the house of Zadok in Israel since 152 BC, when Jonathan, a brother of Judas Maccabeus, received the sacred office. By the national constitution, the high priest was head of the theocratic state, and so those who denied his legitimacy could countenance no aspect of Jewish public life. The Pharisees, during most of the period with which we are concerned, were in opposition to the chief priesthood and its policies, but they played a full part in public life. The members of the Qumran community deplored the Pharisees' laxity in this regard, as well as in their interpretation and application of the laws of purity, and called them the seekers after smooth things, or the givers of smooth interpretations. To those who know the Pharisees only from the Gospels, it may come as a surprise to learn that there were other Jews who criticized them for choosing the easy way in their observance of the law. The Qumran community was organized about 130 BC by a leader whose name is not given. He's regularly called the teacher of righteousness, or perhaps the rightful guide. He was plainly an inspiring personality. He was also an original interpreter of the sacred scriptures. He taught his followers that they had a crucial part to play in the purpose of God for the winding up of the current age of wickedness and the inauguration of the new age of righteousness. As volunteers for holiness, they might endure privation and persecution at the hand of ungodly authorities for the time being, but in due course they would be a chosen instrument in the hand of God for the execution of his righteous judgment on the wicked. If the New Testament presents John the Baptist as one sent to prepare the way for the coming of the Messiah, the Qumran literature ascribes much the same role to the teacher of righteousness. We do not know how far other Essene groups shared the distinctive outlook of the Qumran community. There are said to have been around 4,000 Essenes in the middle of the 1st century AD. These may have included, in addition to members of the ascetic communities, sympathizers and well-wishers in the towns and villages of Israel. We are told that an Essene on a journey could always be sure of finding hospitality with a fellow Essene. Such fellow Essenes who were in a position to provide hospitality might be called associate members of the Essene order, leading ordinary lives here and there throughout the country. In the Gospel of Luke particularly, we meet some people who were looking for the kingdom of God or for the consolation of Israel. Such were Simeon of Jerusalem, who pronounced prophetic words when the infant Jesus was taken to the temple for the ceremony of purification, and Joseph of Arimathea, who provided a tomb for Jesus' body. It would be unwarranted to call such people Essenes, but they seem to have shared something of the Essenes' expectation. Again, when Jesus sent out his disciples 2 by 2 to announce the imminence of the kingdom of God, he told them when they came to a town or village to find out who is worthy in it and stay with him till they left the place. It is not said expressly how the householder's worthiness was to be ascertained, but he would presumably be in general sympathy with their mission. The situation would at least be analogous to that in which a traveling Essene found himself when he required a night's lodging. Put in a link to 2 Johns, John the Baptist and John the Apostle, and the name of God.